Right, well hello ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here today. I especially wanted to say a big thank you to CGMA, and it's very noticeable that from the launch of CGMA at the, I think it's 2 years ago, Andrew, at that launch a report was produced around the whole concept of integrated thinking. And one of the things to be clear when we're talking about integrated reporting is the report is just the end product of the way a business is actually doing its business as such. And I think it's really important to recognise that. But I think that CGMA have been absolutely clear that that is their interest. It is how the business is being managed, not just an end product of a PDF that comes out at the end of it. I'm sure you were all at the session with Simon Hendry, the CFO of Shell, yesterday. And Simon Hendry talked very much about long-term value creation. So what we're talking about in the world of integrated reporting is nothing new. It's just bringing to a fore the fact that we need a capital market system that rewards long-term value creation. And in fact, we have produced, and it's available through the app here, a little document that tries to encapsulate value creation. So do look it up when you go through.
And indeed, and that long-term value creation can include, obviously, things like the effects of corporate social responsibility, how that engages customers and stakeholders. We've seen in various situations in the world, and it's been particularly noticeable in the UK recently, the issues of whether companies are paying their appropriate tax or not. And whilst they are clearly following legal requirements to pay tax, it's upsetting customers because they are seen not to be making their dues to society at large, and that clearly has a value and needs to be reflected in what they're doing. Equally, long-term sustainability, the resources of the world, how we are using the resources of the world, the cost of that on the environment, and reducing the cost of that environment is clearly around creating value. Things that organisations do around diversity, around encapsulating a much wider population who can add value to what they're doing, and not merely about being good, they're about genuinely creating value in the world. And capturing that, thinking that, and managing for that properly is really what this is all about. The first question is, how does your organisation create value? That sounds an extremely easy question to answer, but is actually surprisingly difficult for many organisations. And equally, if you ask different people in the same organisation, how does their organisation create value, you'll get different responses. And if you then take that on to, and how does the business model, how does the way in which we manage our business create value, you get even more different responses. So I don't think there's a pat answer to what you've got to say. There's a degree of thinking together, working together, following that pattern of asking some of those questions together. In many ways, the discipline of being forced into producing an integrated report starts to make you understand some of the questions you don't know. And I think we shouldn't neglect the importance of the report in terms of forcing you into thinking about how are you going to answer the questions you've got to put together in integrated reporting, which then, of course, is then useful to your stakeholders.
It was very interesting. Last week I was in New York, and I was on a panel and listening to Indra Nooyi, who's the CEO of PepsiCo, a huge corporation. But she talked about when she came into the business, she had this overriding vision about profitability with purpose. And what built from that simple tagline, if you like, was actually what is the business about and what are we trying to do. And the thing that we found with the pilot companies that have been part of the Integrated Reporting Council is that the pilot companies, almost the first stage, is to bring together the different silos of the company. And sometimes the reporting side, as Andrew says, brings those together. So you can think about a report. So you have your head of comms, your head of sustainability, your head of finance, the investor relations people, etc. And they are all part of this equation, and they're trying to say, what are we trying to articulate to our investors and wider stakeholders about the management of this business? by doing that, you then have to dig back into the business and say, how are we managing ourselves? And going back to Indra Nooyi, she talks about an integrated scorecard, like a balanced scorecard type thing, where that integrated scorecard is not just about KPIs, but it's actually about how the business is being run. And that's how she monitors and runs the business, and then that's articulated in the form of an integrated report at the end of the day, which they're now starting to prepare. So it is that, it's a catalyst in many ways. Is absolutely fundamental to integrated reporting is connectivity. And what we're seeing is some very good strategic reports explaining the management and the strategy of the business, but without it being connected to the performance of the company. And to me, what we're looking for at the IIRC is that connectivity. And I think that brings about, there's been some analysis done of many of the large companies who have done integrated reporting. And our biggest criticism is the lack of that connecting to performance. Because I think the strength of financial reporting in many ways is the reporting on the performance. And what we've got to do is make sure that that is linked to the strategy piece, and then you have a proper integrated report. And I think so in many ways, I think that will be the lattice work that is missing and that we should all be able to see.